Hello everybody and welcome to my channel. Really appreciate you being here. And listen, let's say it right out front. The Beatles dominate everything. After 50 plus years of being an act, a music act, an artist, whatever you want to call them, they dominate everything. When albums come out, they still sell big time, okay? The sales, thousands, millions in sales. To this day, it's still being racked up every time they release something. Music, pop culture, the movies, okay? We got the Let It Be movie coming out this fall, hopefully, keeping our fingers crossed. When that comes out, there's a lot of buzz about it. People are excited about it. They want to see it. They can't wait. You know it's going to be a big deal and it's going to be in all the media. But the other area where the Beatles dominate, folks, is in memorabilia. People still love collecting the Beatles, and that's totally evident right here in the vinyl and music and Beatles community, right? People collecting vinyl and collectibles and memorabilia and showing off books and showing off all different items they have. Hey, I do it myself all the time. Recently, I just talked to you about a friend of mine, Jim, who gave me and gifted me that beautiful Ringo Starr personally owned t-shirt back there, which I have proudly on display. He also gave me a piece of John Lennon's towel from Surrey back in 1968. I showed you that. I mean, this collecting stuff is intense. It can be everything from beginner level stuff, people collecting their first CDs or putting together their first collection of Beatles solo material, all the way up to collecting high-end items in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, even in the millions of dollars to collect Beatles items. So I wanted to talk about a cool guide my friend Jim suggested and recommended to me. He said, Matt, you've got to get this book. It's fabulous. If you're into Beatles collecting or just seeing what's out there, you've got to get this book. So it's called The Beatles, Fab Finds of the Fab Four. Fab Finds of the Fab Four. It just came out in 2016. It's by Noah Fleischer. Noah Fleischer. Okay, his name's right down there. Okay, so if you want to look for this book, here's the back. Real quick, give you a gander at that. All right. Folks, this book is awesome. Awesome. I've gone completely through it. I've dissected it. And as you see, I have some tabs here. I'm going to try to show you some cool stuff that's in this book. Again, folks, Jim recommended it, and I trust Jim. He's been a big Beatles fan since day one. He knows his stuff. As I told you, he was involved in Magical History Tour, that great show that's been going around the country and elsewhere for the last 5 years or so. And I can tell you, he was right. This is an awesome guidebook. And I have to be honest, folks. I think me and Mr. Mayo, Joe, talked about it recently, and also Tom, Mr. Beatles Pro. I agree with them 100%. I have stayed away from books in recent years. There are so many Beatles books out there, and I've just gotten tired of collecting them when you get the same old redundant stuff, same pictures over and over again. It gets old, it gets tiring, so I've kind of really backed way down on getting Beatles books. The only way I'll get a Beatles book now is it has to be something very unique and very special. All right, like if it's one of the Bruce Spicer books that I don't have yet about, the labels they were on and all that extensive stuff Bruce does, I'll maybe pick up one of those. Or I recently showed you the book by Chuck Gunderson, Having Some Fun Tonight, about the Beatles' North American tours. Highly recommended. Stuff like that. It has to be a real special and unique book. Well, this was that for me. When I checked out what this was all about and then got Jim's recommendation, I said, yep, this is something I'm glad I picked up. Because, folks, I think if you're a fan of the Beatles, this might be a book you do want to check out. I think it's worthy of your time. Now, basically, it's a picture guide of all the numerous Beatles treasures. I'm talking collectibles, memorabilia, and this goes from extreme expensive stuff, like John Lennon's Gibson J160E acoustic guitar from way back in 62, 63 that he got with George, that got lost for many years. That's in here, which went for like over $2 million recently to a collector, all the way down to stuff for beginners. stuff at people at the mid-level, people in the beginning level, just starting to collect. Maybe they don't have a lot of funds, a lot of resources to spend on Beatles collecting. Well, there's ideas for you in here how you can collect the early, beginning stuff. All right, low-end stuff. And I'm kind of in that level myself, I can't afford to spend big bucks, buku bucks on Beatles collecting. I just can't do it. So anyway, just want to show you some stuff in here and see if you like it, see what you think. Stuff like this, for example. Here's a copy. Remember that original copy of Mercy Beat magazine that came out, Beatles Top Poll? You can get something like that for $7,680 to get an original of that. All right, another cool one I have is Ringo's pinky ring. All right, and there's so much, folks. If I showed you all the cool stuff in here, we'd be here all day. And you'd be tired of me, and you'd unsubscribe, and you'd say, that's it, I'm done with Matt. So I want to keep it to some cool highlight stuff. But believe me, folks, the book is totally worth your time. Ringo pinky ring, $106,250 for Ringo's pinky ring. I guess he wore that ring on every show the Beatles ever did, especially coming through North America and whatnot. That was a pinky ring that he always had on. And there's another ring of Ringo's you can get here. I'm not sure. This one went for $100,000, but I thought that pinky one with the blue jewel in it was very nice. Early stuff, mid-level stuff. It shows you stuff during the solo Beatles years. Some of the NEMS stuff is in here. The licensed Beatles products are in here. Not as extensive as another book out there Jim recommended, and I think Tom, Mr. Beatles Pro, also showed it, called NEMS. The whole book is just about NEMS and all the licensed Beatles material and collectibles from the early days. But there is some of that in here. Okay, we have a Beatles signed baseball, which I thought was very unique for you sports fans. Beatles signed baseball. You can see Paul's there and the other signatures around the side of it. That Beatles signed baseball it was signed on August 15th, 1966 at DC Stadium in Washington, and it went for auction for $100,000 not too long ago. Pretty neat. Other pictures, you can buy some pictures of the Beatles, original pictures. They went for $1,000. Let's see, let's go to something else here. Okay. Who remembers the Hey Jude album? Yes, we all do. And that sculpture right there, that was right here on the album, that sculpture was just auctioned off for $35,200 for that sculpture. Remember the Bed In for Peace with John and Yoko back in the day? Well, the hairpiece sign, remember that hairpiece sign you could see clearly in many of the pictures of John and Yoko lying in the bed? That just went for auction recently for $185,000. And it was also signed by John and Yoko, and I'm not sure if any other folks signed it, but John and Yoko signed it, and it went for auction for $100,000. Can you imagine that? Wait a minute, I'm off. $185,000. My vision's going, folks. $185,000 for that. Wow. 4 individually signed picture sleeves by each of the Beatles went for $5,640. John signed a Mind Games 45 sleeve. George signed, looks like must have been all those years ago. Paul signed Take It Away, and Ringo signed You're 16 for a little over $5,000. Those could be yours. So many cool things in this book. Oh, fun read, fun read. This is pretty neat. George Harrison owned this Mercedes-Benz down here. And when he passed away, somehow Ringo acquired it. I don't know how, but it became Ringo's. Well, Ringo just recently auctioned it off, and it sold at auction for $70,400 for George and Ringo's Mercedes. But I mean, so many cool things. Guitars owned by the Beatles. It's just, here's some cool Beatles guitars. And I think I have that special one for John coming up pretty soon. Ringo, a drum head that was used on the Ed Sullivan Show. When they were on Ed Sullivan all those years ago, here's the drum head from that show. And it went for $2 million plus to get that. Can you imagine? Ringo's drumsticks, not specifically from that show, but used in 1965. Here's his drumsticks. They just went for $11,520. Cool stuff. Expensive stuff. I put a little note here. Expensive. Yeah, it is. I'm talking getting guitars owned by George and stuff for like $485,000 or yeah, you know, in the hundreds of thousands of dollars to get some original guitars owned by Beatles. Really expensive stuff. And here's where we start a little chapter, so to speak, on John's missing Gibson J160E acoustic guitar, which he and George both purchased. There it is there. There's John playing it. Back in the day, a classic lost and found story. Very cool. And that Gibson J160E, when it was discovered after many decades, and then finally bought by a collector, that collector paid $2,410,000 for it. Wow. You just hope that collector does something with it so people can enjoy it and maybe see it somewhere. And this is cool. The most expensive Beatles record in the world. It's the White Album, 00000001 is the number. And I believe it was the one that Ringo Starr had. And that went for $790,000 to a collector. So if you wanted White Album #1, you had a little under $1 million bucks in your back pocket, you could have bought that #1 White Album. So folks, I've gone 11 minutes already, going on 12. Great, great book, recommended by my friend Jim. And I love it. I'm so happy to have it. The Beatles, Fab Finds of the Fab Four by Noah Fleischer, came out in 2016. A fun read. And there's a lot, like I said, that's a lot of the expensive stuff I just showed you. But there's a lot of stuff for beginners and early, young collectors starting out where you're paying, around $100, less than $100 to get a pretty cool collectible. So check it out, folks. See what you think. I like it. It's a great book, fun read, and you're seeing some cool Beatle collectibles. Some of them one of a kind. So again, thank you, bless you all, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.